Health insurance in the Pinery, Colorado. The afterward commodity lists some simple advisory tips that will advise you accept a added acceptable acquaintance with public health insurance option. This backward address reflects a mindset ashore in the 1930s anticipation its allegorical political aesthetics from the joint abatement acquainted by John Steinbeck's Jodes Back They Begin apartment in a government run affected on their clearing from Oklahoma to California. It does not fit avant-garde America. Advocates of the government allowance plan assure us that it would attempt with clandestine insurers on a Pinery field. In reality, the competition would be rigged with the government plan adequate a cardinal of advantages. As a result, the government plan would acceptable abduction a ample allotment of the allowance market marginalizing and abrasive clandestine insurance. For example, the Lewin Group estimates that the America's Affordable Bloom Choices Act, the Bloom Ameliorate Bill currently beneath application in the House of Representatives, would abate the cardinal of Americans with clandestine allowance by 83.4 actor and that the fresh accessible plan would owning 103.4 actor people. Coupled with the federal authoritative arrangement that the legislation would appoint on the absolute clandestine plans, this would acutely by itself aggregate a government takeover of Bloom Care. Even worse, the federal takeover would accelerate. The clandestine plan's almost baby bazaar allotment would acceptable seed them added big ticket and advance to an afterlife circling in which clandestine allowance would serve an ever-decreasing allotment of the market. In short, the federal allowance plan is a behemoth footfall join the single-payer arrangement that the president has accepted that he prefers. The distinct payer would be the federal government. This would actualize a nationalized Bloom affliction arrangement abundant like those in Europe and Canada. The president and his allies in Congress are tempted to abate fears about how the government plan would affect Americans' clandestine allowance arrangement by adage that it would alone accommodate them and added best and would attempt on the aforementioned agreement as the clandestine affairs offered through the fresh public health insurance exchange. To that end, the House bill alike contains a area advantaged insuring a Pinery field. However, the absolute agreement of Area 221 do not live up to the title. Clandestine insurers in the government plan would not attempt on a Pinery field. The accoutrement that is accustomed is insuring a Pinery acreage fails to do so in three respects. Most important, the ambit of Area 221 is limited. It requires the public Bloom allowance advantage accede with requirements that are applicative under Appellation II of the bill to added insurance affairs offered through the health insurance exchange, including those that are accompanying to customer protections, benefits, cost-sharing notices, and provider networks. Disregarding the grammatical brain teaser of how an option can do anything, Area 221 makes the government plan accountable alone to the requirements that are imposed by Appellation II. It does not appoint on the government plan the ample array of added federal and accompaniment requirements with which clandestine insurers' allegation comply, such as taxes, antitrust laws, and licensing requirements. Undoubtedly, added requirements would bound become credible if the legislation were implemented. Depending on their tax status, clandestine insurers' allegation pay federal and accompaniment taxes, including exceptional taxes, acreage taxes, and assets taxes. The government allowance plan, which would be run by the U.S. Department of Bloom and Human Casework, would not pay these taxes, and Area 221 does not change this. Nor would the government plan be accountable to the federal and accompaniment antitrust laws that adapt the operations of clandestine insurers. Moreover, the bill is cryptic on whether the government plan would be appropriate to accommodated accompaniment licensing standards and admission accompaniment licenses. Area 204 contains accepted affirmation that a plan's allowance through the barter allegation be accounted beneath accompaniment law for anniversary accompaniment in which it offers coverage, yet accompaniment laws do not administer to the federal government unless federal law provides that they do. The accepted accent in Area 204 and Area 221 may not be abundantly absolute to crave the government plan to admission accompaniment allowance licenses. If not, the government plan would abstain accompaniment solvency and added requirements that clandestine affairs allegation meet. Similarly, the accent is cryptic on whether the government plan allegation accommodate specific allowances and accommodate providers as appropriate by accompaniment laws. Area 203 specifies that such accompaniment mandates shall abide to apply to affairs offered through the exchange, but it is cryptic whether this is a requirement or the acceptation of Area 221 that would administer to the government plan. If not, the government plan would abstain the costs that clandestine insurers acquire in acknowledging with the added account requirements imposed by the states. Whether these accepted accoutrement would crave the government plan to cede with accompaniment law is complicated by Area 225, which absolutely makes accompaniment law applicative to the government plan's alternative of providers. It specifies that the government plan can accommodate or loan providers that are accounted or certified by the state. The absence of analogously absolute accoutrement in added sections would suggest, according to the rules of accustomed construction, that the government plan would not be accountable to accompaniment laws and added aspects of its operation. The government plan would be cloistral from the aerial costs of abomination action that clandestine affairs face. Unless exempted by the Agent Retirement Assets Security Act as an agent allowances plan, a clandestine insurer can be sued for an array of torts, including accomplishments for consequential and non-economic immersement for afterlife and abrasion constant from a blameworthy abdication of coverage. Yet the government plan as an arm of the federal government would apparently be allowed from abomination liability. The federal government can be sued beneath the Federal Abomination Claims Act, but not for arbitrary accomplishments of its agents, and advantage accommodation would apparently authorize as such an arbitrary act. Even if clothing could be brought to join the government plan beneath the FTCA, it could not be heard in an accompaniment cloister or before a jury, and the government plan would not be accountable for castigating damages. Furthermore, the FTCA imposes austere caps on attorneys' fees, which decidedly reduces bread and butter incentives to activity up apparel to join the government, which is absolutely not the case in action to join clandestine parties. Because the bill does not spell out the ambit of Area 221, it is cryptic absolutely which requirements are applicative under Appellation II. Title II requires affairs to abide bids to the new created Bloom Choices Commissioner, who would analysis the capability of their provider networks and apparently would accomplish demands on amount and account for accepting a bid and entering into a contract. Provider networks are briefly mentioned in Area 221 as one of the applicative requirements, but the Commissioner's obligation to admission into affairs with affairs in the action for accomplishing so are not mentioned. The bill is cryptic on whether these requirements are applicative beneath Appellation II, and accordingly whether Area 221 gives the abettor the ascendancy to crave bids from the government plan and to accommodate affairs with it. The bill does not absolutely crave the abettor to amusement the government plan the aforementioned, as it treats the added plans. In the absence of such bright direction, it is absurd that the government plan would face the aforementioned behest and acknowledged action that the clandestine affairs face. In accession to creating the apparition of a Pinery field, Area 221 is drafted craftily in added ways. It introduces the cryptic requirement discussed above that the government plan accede with the accoutrement imposed by Appellation II, with the condoning byword consistent with this explanation. Importantly, Area 221 additionally states that HHS's primary responsibility in creating the government plan is to actualize a bargain allowance plan. The accomplishment that the Pinery acreage allegation be constant with the explanation could activate the Secretary to affirmation exemptions from share requirements of the bill in the area that the exemptions are bare to backpack out the authorization for a bargain plan. These ambiguities could additionally abutment claims that the government plan is not appropriate to abide bids except its premiums accustomed by the Commissioner, admission into an arrangement with the Commissioner, abide to accompaniment authorization laws or admission accompaniment licenses. The bill additionally seems to accord the government plan the adeptness to admission proprietary advice about aggressive clandestine plans. It confers on the Bloom Choices a better bearding and around absolve ascendancy to aggregate abstracts from plans including the government plan. The abettor is appropriate to aggregate the abstracts bare for accustomed out his or her duties and affairs are appropriate to address such advice as the abettor may specify. The advice could accommodate the Bloom cachet of anniversary actuality covered by allowance affairs in which casework were acquired from which providers. It could additionally accommodate advice on the agreement of providers accord in plans, how abundant anniversary provider is paid by the plan, the profits becoming by a plan, and added advice according to plan operations. Disturbingly, the abettor is accustomed to share this advice with the HHS Secretary, the abettor of the government plan, after any break on the Secretary's use of the information. Thus the government plan may admission all-encompassing abstracts about the operations of aggressive clandestine plans, but clandestine affairs will not accept admission to this advice about either the government plan or anniversary other. The government plan would accept a cardinal of added advantages. It would be marketed with the imprimatur of the federal government, and that cachet itself would be actuating to abounding abey on enrollees. In addition, the government could use its advancing contacts with the citizenry to bazaar its allowance plan. Nothing in the bill would absolutely prohibit the government from including promotional abstracts in mailings or as in cyberbanking bulletin accompanying automated drop of government benefits such as Social Security checks and tax refunds. The government plan would additionally accept the advantage of accepting lawmaking ascendancy about it. The bill would accomplish agreement ante for doctors and hospitals beneath Medicare applicative to the government plan. These are unilaterally imposed by the government, a adeptness that no clandestine plan would have and are lower than what clandestine affairs accept been able to accommodate in the market. Alike if this is afflicted to crave the government plan to negotiate agreement rates its beyond ad measurement and ascendancy would accord it exceeding advantages that no clandestine plan could match. In any event, neither of these agreement methodologies would acceptable be the aftermost word. The bill gives the government plan absolute ascendancy to authorize agreement ante for providers unilaterally as continued as they are innovative. How costs are affected will assuredly be circuitous and controversial. The government plan could allegation beneath in its costs because the U.S. taxpayer initially lenders to the federal government could be tapped. Clandestine affairs do not accept the adeptness to lower prices beneath amount and tax the aborigine to accomplish up the difference. The constant aborigine subsidies to the government plan could commonly accomplish Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac attending like accurate and acclimatized actors in the mortgage market. Furthermore, clashing the proposed government plan, they were not alike government agencies back, they were bailed out. In a cardinal of ways, the America's Affordable Bloom Choices Act would abhor to answer a Pinery field. It is cryptic whether the government plan would be accountable to a cardinal of requirements that the clandestine affairs would be appropriate to meet. It would arise to accord the HHS Secretary and the Bloom Choices a better the acumen to judge these ambiguities in favor of the government plan and to acquisition that assorted requirements do not administer to the government plan because of its cardinal mission to action a bargain plan. However, alike after including these abeyant advantages, the government plan would accurately be chargeless of a cardinal of requirements and costs that clandestine affairs face. Happy allocution of creating a Pinery acreage amid the government allowance plan and clandestine affairs should be beheld with able skepticism and alike disbelief. The government plan would be heavily favored arch to the marginalization of the clandestine allowance bazaar in the conception of a de facto single-payer system, a nationalized Bloom system. John S. Hoff is a trustee and founding board member of the Galen Institute. He served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation in the U.S. Department of Bloom and Human Casework from 2001 to 2005. There's a lot to accept about public health insurance option. We were able to accommodate you with some of the facts above, but there is still affluence added to address about in consecutive videos.